Welcome to the Mustard Seed Media video podcast. My name is Bob, and this is the podcast for Drupal web designers. I have a feeling there's a whole lot of designers and themers out there who would contribute their themes back to the Drupal community for everyone to use if it was a little bit easier to do. So today what I'm going to talk about is called CVS, and I'm going to do it from a designer's perspective. CVS is the system that allows you to share your themes back up to Drupal.org and allow other users to contribute to them and basically keep everything updated. It's a versioning system, a file versioning system that we need to use to interface with Drupal.org. The problem is it's very developer-centric. So I'm going to show you in a graphical user interface today how as a designer can at least get started by sharing your theme up to Drupal.org. I'm just going to touch the bare basics. But to do that, I'm going to start over at the whiteboard to show you just generally how all of this stuff works. So when you're working on any Drupal project, there's a few key concepts to know. The first is that all projects live on Drupal.org. And the reason for this is that Drupal can then keep track of what changes are happening. It's basically a version control system. So you can have user 1, user 2, user 3 all contributing to the same project. And what's happening is Drupal's keeping track of what version of each file is the active one or the most up-to-date one. So that if user 1 changes something and user 2 then changes something else, Drupal can keep track of those changes and update the files, and then it automatically gets pushed to the project page. So then what you have is you have your computer down here. So on your computer is where you usually do most of your initial development, whether it be a theme or a module or anything else. And then what's going to happen is you're going to push it up to Drupal.org. The only problem is right in the middle, right here, is CVS. This whole process is controlled by something called CVS, which is, I think, concurrent versioning system. That might be wrong. But basically what it does is it keeps track of all these versions that people are pushing up to Drupal.org. So what you do is you have to have a tool. You have to have a CVS tool. Most developers use a command line, a terminal window or something. You have to have a CVS tool that's going to keep track of these. So when you create a new project, it lets you upload it to Drupal.org, puts the versioning information in, does all of that stuff. And then when you want to work on it again, you're going to download it from Drupal.org with any changes that anyone's made, so you have the latest version that you're working on. Then again, once you're done, you're going to re-upload it again. It doesn't have to be the whole project. It can just be individual files. So that's generally how CVS and Drupal.org and your project all work together. So let's show you how to do it now. Okay, so let's dive in and get this whole thing going. As I mentioned before, we're not going to use the command line like all developers do because we're themers. We don't know all that programming stuff. So we're going to use a CVS client. This is just a graphical user interface client. I'm using one, and I'm going to demo one called Smart CVS. I believe this is Mac only, so there's probably an equivalent Windows one. And if you know what it is, go ahead and jump over to mustardseedmedia.com/podcast and post a link to it in the comments of this episode to help our Windows people out. So download this, and that'll get you going. If you go to drupal.org/handbook/CVS, everything that I'm going to talk about is all in here. It's a giant book section that will talk all about all the details that I'm going to show you and way more. So if you want to know more about Drupal and CVS, head over there. But let's open up Smart CVS. The very first thing you're going to see is this what do you want to do window. And I'm going to suggest that probably what we're going to start with is we're going to have a theme that's been already developed. It's sitting on our computer somewhere, and we want to contribute it to Drupal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the very first thing I'm going to do is choose Create Module in Repository. The repository is the whole, the section where all the files are on Drupal.org. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to choose where that module is. In my case, I'll just pick a random one here since I'm not actually going to contribute it. I'm going to choose this theme. And you're actually choosing the theme directory. Hit continue. Now you'll see we have no repository defined. What we're doing here is we're actually saying this is where Drupals.org CVS is. Here's my login information, all of that. A side note to all of this, you must apply for a CVS account before you can do any of this. So jump over to Drupal.org and search for, it might be in the CVS section, but search for how to apply for a CVS account. And you have to go through that whole process. And one of those steps is to show the folks at Drupal.org the theme that you're going to contribute, just so they can make sure you know what you're doing. So here we have to define a repository. I'm going to click Manage to add a new one. add a new repository. We want pserver. I'm going to put in my username. This is your CVS username. The server name is cvs.drupal.org, and the repository path is /cvs/Drupal-contrib. So I'm going to hit continue, and now I'm going to put in my CVS password. And then I'm going to just, this profile name is only used by the CVS program just to identify it. I'm just going to call it Drupal-contrib. And I'm going to hit finish. We now have a profile that when I go to add something, it should connect just fine. So let's hit continue. This is my module name that I'm adding. But one key thing here, if I submitted this right now, it would go to the CVS root on Drupal.org. Instead, I want to click this little browse button that doesn't look much like a browse button. Open up contributions. And I want to drop it into themes. So it's Drupal contrib, contributions, themes. That's where I want it. So I'm going to choose that. And then I'm going to do that. So then I can name my project again. Now, if I did all of this correctly and I hit finish, it's going to set me up on Drupal.org CVS with a new theme called Geeks and God. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to actually submit that. So I'm going to hit cancel. And I'm going to open another module that I have. Oops, let me find the right thing here. And so I'm going to go into my contributions directory, into themes. Now you can check out anyone else's module, you just can't save to it. What I'm doing right now is I'm downloading another theme from Drupal.org. And so I'm going to check out HTML0, which is a theme that I'm allowed to contribute to. And it says, where do you want to check it out? I'm going to check it out actually into a site that I have going here called Screencast. And I'm going to choose there to check it out. I can say, where do you want it checked out to? You want this to just be the name of the module or the theme. You can leave all this stuff as is. Hit continue. I'm going to name this project HTML0. That's just the name so I can recognize it. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to hit finish. What you're going to see happening down here is you're going to see it actually checking out all of that stuff into my directory. And so here it all is. So now I have a module. I could go in with my text editor, change any of these files that I want to change. And then what I'm going to do to re-upload them is I'm just going to click on it, right-click on it, and hit commit, and it'll actually upload. So a key thing that I didn't mention so far, since we didn't upload that new module I originally created, was when you originally create a module, you're going to have, and you go through that process, you're going to have a screen that looks just like this. But the problem is all of this local state is going to say non-CVS. And the reason for that is because you actually have to tell CVS which files you want to be able to check in and out of CVS. So all you're going to do is you're going to go to this section, hit select all, right-click, and this ad will be shown. Click this, and what you're doing, and then just go through a little process that's afterwards. You can leave all the defaults and just hit OK. But what this is doing is adding all the files so you can commit them to CVS. And then up here, what you're going to see is you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see where you can then commit the entire module up to CVS. Up until that point, it's just sitting on your hard drive. What commit means is push everything up to the Drupal.org servers and make any changes that I made. And then once you're all done, let's say we're working on an active module like this one, and we want to be able to download any changes that other users have made. Just as a side note, you have to give them CVS access through your project page to be able to do that. You're going to right-click on this, and you're just going to hit Update. And it's going to grab all the updated files. In this case, there was none. But it's going to grab all the updated files and make sure you're working on the most recent version. So that's a general overview of CVS. It's a little bit confusing. Go ahead and ask your questions in the comments, and myself or other users will be able to help you out. But then what I'm going to show you real quick is once you're done with all of that, you can create a new project. These are those project pages on Drupal.org. You would select themes, you would put in a full name and a short name. The short name is going to be your URL. Put in your description and all that. But here's the important part. you're going to put in something like themes, my theme name. Whatever you named your theme, whatever the folder name is in CVS, that's what you're going to put there. What will happen then is Drupal.org will automatically find your files in CVS, in the CVS directory, zip them all up into a nice compact folder so people can download it, and it'll add it to your project page. Once you're ready to submit an official release, so one of those 1.0 releases, not a dev release, you'll do something called tagging. So what you'll do is you'll select all your files, and you'll choose Add Tag. Sorry. And what these tags look like is something like, they always start with Drupal, all uppercase. 6, this is the major version, so 5 or 6 or 7, -1. What this would do is create a 6.1 version of your release. And so if I tag all these files, it basically tells Drupal.org, hey, this is a 6.1 version of this. And so then once you do that and you recommit those files, you can submit a new release. So at that point, you will go to, this is all on the sidebar, create content, by the way. I'll just go find, just find my theme, hit next, and then I'll go through this. Basically, because I haven't tagged anything on my files, I didn't do that 6.1, it's not finding it. Otherwise, it would find it here, and you could continue through and create a release. All that was a lot of information, and it might have been a little bit confusing, because it's still confusing to me. I'm figuring all this stuff out every day. But hopefully, it'll give you at least a primer, at least a starter on making you confident enough to create a new theme, download Smart CVS, get it up into the Drupal repository. Even if you don't collaborate with other people yet, that's when it gets a little bit confusing. At least you can always monitor your own files and push them up to share those themes. Whew, that was a lot of info, but you can ask your questions or post your comments on it over at mustardseedmedia.com/podcast. And don't forget to check out my audio podcast as well over at geeksandgod.com. That's it for now. We will see you next week on the Mustard Seed Media video podcast.